Today's lesson is How should Taiwan address its stray animal population? Hi, everybody. My name is Roger.
And I'm Mike.
And today we're going to continue talking about the problem of stray animals in Taiwan. We could give you our opinions on that, but we're actually getting the opinions of various people. Remember last time we heard from Jason, May, and Elmo. What did Jason said? He said that we should have more animal shelters.
More shelters, yeah.
And then May said there's some relationship between the health of these animals and society, so we should address that problem. And then Elmo thought that people should adopt stray animals and not buy pets from pet stores.
Yes, absolutely right. I think a lot of those are very sensible suggestions. The animal shelter one, that's always great on paper, but I know we have a friend actually who runs an animal shelter. Finding a location is really, really hard.
Yeah, nobody wants to hear those yapping dogs in the
neighborhood.
neighborhood.
It's kind of like having a prison in your neighborhood or a new basketball court or something. It sounds great in practice, but then you actually have to deal with the noise that comes from that place all the time, the dogs barking. Depending on how the wind blows in your neighborhood, it might not also smell so great some of the time. So having animal shelters is great, but often they can be quite expensive to run. You need a fair amount of land, and you can't really have them in a city center. So actually finding a location for an animal shelter can be a lot more challenging than you might expect for some obvious reasons that many of us just haven't really considered. So that is a great one, but it does come with a whole host of other problems. So let's get into it today. We're going to hear 5 more opinions, different people with ideas about how to address Taiwan's pet population and stray animals specifically. So let's get into it, starting with Ling, who's an ecologist. So we should be learning some interesting stuff from our first opinion.
Ling, 28, ecologist. Stray animals have a significant impact on Taiwan's local ecology. Cats, for example, hunt small birds and insects, which upsets the balance of our native ecosystems. So, reducing the stray population is important for maintaining biodiversity.
大家好，第一部分介绍名词 ecology， 它的意思是生态环境，也可以是生态学的意思。例如 The reintroduction of gray wolves has had a positive effect on the ecology of this region. 灰狼的再次引入为此区的生态带来正面影响。或者 Building a road along the coast could have negative effects on the ecology of animals in the area. 沿着海岸修建道路可能会对该区的动物生态产生负面影响。接着看到 ecosystem 这个名词，表示生态系统。例如 The forest ecosystem is home to many different plants and animals. 森林生态系统拥有许多不同的动植物。或是 Pollution can seriously damage the balance of an ecosystem. 污染会严重破坏生态系统的平衡。
Okay, so here's Ling's opinion, and she's 28 years old, and she is an ecologist. I'll talk about an ecologist in just a second here, but here's what she says. Stray animals have a significant impact on Taiwan's local ecology. Okay, ecology is the science of studying how living things interact with each other, and it's all about society and the environment, basically. How people also interact with the environment, what sort of effects different kinds of animals and people have on the local environment. And a person who is a specialist in that is called an ecologist, and that's what Ling is.
Yes, absolutely right. The ecology is kind of just like that network of relationships between animals and plants living in an environment, right? So we often know that there'd be a certain type of tree and a certain type of bird nests in that tree. If the tree disappears, the birds will disappear. If we introduce too many new animals, they might chase out the other ones or eat all their food. So those natural balances can be kind of upset fairly easily. And so she gives this example. Cats, for example, hunt small birds and insects, which upsets the balance of our native ecosystems. This would be both stray animals living outside without a home, and also many people let their cats out during the day or even night, and the cats can go around the neighborhood. Your fluffy cat that kind of curls up at the end of the sofa and purrs away when you're scratching it, that can be a killer outside in your neighborhood. I think they've done studies in the UK where your average house cat can catch hundreds of birds and small animals a year, and some of the most effective effective ones much more than that. So that's kind of what Lingen is describing here, and this can upset the balance of our native ecosystems. You can have these very effective hunting animals coming into a part of the world where the local animals have never really had effective hunters. I think they had all these birds that used to lay their eggs on the ground in New Zealand, and when the first European ships arrived with all these ship's cats on board, trained or kept to chase rats and kill rats on the boat, these cats got loose in New Zealand and wiped out all of these bird species because the birds were not used to keeping their eggs safe up in a tree. The cats just went crazy having eggs all the time until there were no more eggs. So, she says, reducing the stray population is important for maintaining biodiversity. Ecology, ecosystems, that's kind of the network of different living creatures, living organisms in a place. And this is all about biodiversity. Having a wide range of animals and plants in an ecosystem is biodiversity. So no disease can come along and wipe out all of the animals because the animals are different enough species that they maintain a kind of healthy balance of many different varieties. And that's, of course, much healthier for the environment than kind of putting all your, excuse the pun, putting all your eggs in one basket. And of course, if you have that problem and the basket gets damaged, well, there go your eggs.
So it is a good point, but we've got some other perspectives that we need to hear about. So let's find out what James and Yu have to say in the next paragraph. Let's listen.
James, 51, small business owner. There need to be stricter laws around pet ownership. Many strays were abandoned by their previous owners. If laws required pet owners to properly register and care for their animals, we could prevent pets from becoming strays in the first place.
You, 36, teacher. People need to understand that it's cruel to abandon animals and that spaying or neutering pets makes a big difference in controlling the population. Educating the public is key to bringing down the number of strays.
第二部分看到动词 abandon 指抛弃、遗弃或是中途放弃。例如 They abandoned the car and walked the rest of the journey. 他们弃车走完剩下的旅程。也可以说 The cat was abandoned by its owner and left to wander the streets. 那只猫被主人遗弃，只能流浪街头。下一个介绍动词 register 表示登记或是注册。我们可以说 You can register your name online. 你可以在网络上登记你的名字。又或者说 Brad registered a patent for his new invention. Brad 为自己的新发明注册了专利。
Okay, here's James and what he thinks. He's a small business owner, not a big company owner, but he's got a small business. And he says, there need to be stricter laws around pet ownership. Many strays were abandoned by their previous owners. Okay, so yes, we need to have stricter laws about the ownership of pets. Okay, it seems to be really easy to get a pet, and if you don't want it, you can just release it. And that's what he says here. Many strays were abandoned by their previous owners. And I suspect this is the case with a lot of stray cats in my neighborhood. They look pretty healthy. They look like they were somebody's pets. But maybe the kids grew up and went off to college and they're not interested in the cat anymore. Or maybe the cat has a cold kind of personality. So they thought, let's just let him go. We don't need to keep it anymore. It's a big burden. So if you let something go like that, we're saying it's abandoned, okay? It was just let go, and it's no longer being taken care of.
Absolutely. Pets can, of course, scratch things. They can pee and poo in the house, and people might not be able to deal with that. They can be expensive, too, right? Food for pets, medical care for pets can be quite expensive. And yes, sometimes people just aren't aware of that. They're not thinking seriously about it when they adopt them, so they do end up being abandoned. James goes on to say, if laws required pet owners to properly register and care for their animals, we could prevent pets from becoming strays in the first place. So put in a set of laws so you have to register your animal in the same way that you have to register your motorcycle or your car. You have to go down to a government office, you have to put in your name, show them your ID, sign a bunch of documents, pay a small amount of money, and then they basically know who this pet, or in the normal case, who this car is connected to. So if your car does something wrong, they know who to go and find and to blame for that. In the same way, if your pet ends up biting someone in a park because it's been abandoned, they can find you and give you a ticket or force you to pay restitution, force you to compensate the person that your pet has injured in the same way that you're responsible for what your car does once you register it. And registering is basically just a sort of formal process of signing up for something, giving official information, having your name put on a list, an official list of some kind of institution. So, of course, you'll register for school when you first put your kids into the system. You'll register at the hospital when you go to see a doctor, and you register at the hotel when you go in and say, "Hi, we're here. Do you have a room for us? We've booked a room for 2 nights." So you go to register, basically officially put your name on a list and let people know that you are joining in whatever they are doing. In this case, you are joining in with your pet, and all of this will be very official, and it could prevent pets from becoming strays in the first place. If people have to take more responsibility for their pets, then they will show more responsibility. They will be more responsible. I do worry, though. Pets can kind of be created just in the back room. It's not like you have to go to only a certain place and buy a pet. So I think the responsible owners would do this because they're responsible owners, but I'm not sure it would stop the irresponsible owners from their behavior.
Right. It sounds like a reasonable suggestion, but maybe it would be hard to implement. Okay, let's find out what Yu has to say, or you, however you want to pronounce it. She's 36 years old, and she is a teacher. She says, people need to understand that it's cruel or mean or bad to abandon animals, and that spaying or neutering pets makes a big difference in controlling the population. So that's like what you were saying in our program last time. Yes. So to neuter means to make it so it no longer can produce sexually, or it's not able to reproduce, it cannot have babies. And spaying here, I believe, refers to what you do to the female. You remove the ovaries from the animal so that they cannot reproduce.
There you go. I guess we would use the term castrating for a male animal, where you remove the testicles. But in either of those cases, spaying for female, castrating for male, you are neutering the animal. You are removing its ability to reproduce sexually. And this makes a big difference. This will have a big impact in controlling the population because, of course, stray animals out in a park, they will be, let's say, going on dates almost nightly, and you can probably create 40, 50, 60 new dogs over a year or two if you have just a couple in your local park because, of course, they'll be getting frisky and we'll have all sorts of new wild stray puppies out there, and this is not good for anyone. Educating the public, Yu says, is key to bringing down the number of strays. If people know how bad it is, what damage it can cause, how expensive it can be to sort of fix once you have this problem, if people just know more, then they will change their behavior and be more responsible. That's a very hopeful way of looking at it. All right, then we have a little break, and we're going to be back with our last 2 opinions from Ray and Lucy. I'm interested in Lucy's. She is a veterinarian. Ray, 27, hotel employee. I think it'd be awesome if we could try more creative ways to help strays, like opening cat cafes or even dog-friendly spots. People could come, hang out with the animals, and maybe feel inspired to adopt one. Plus, these places could help spread the word about pet care and responsible ownership.
Lucy, 29, veterinarian. I see the hardships strays face every day, and it's heartbreaking. I think a combination of adoption programs, stricter pet laws, and public awareness campaigns is what's needed. There's no one solution, so a mix of approaches is necessary.
第3部分看到形容词 awesome， 意思是了不起的、令人惊叹的或是令人敬畏的。例如 The speech that Allegra delivered was awesome in so many ways. Allegra 发表的演说就很多层面而言很了不起的。再看一个例子 Many artists have been inspired by the awesome power of the ocean. 许多艺术家都曾被海洋令人赞叹的力量启发。继续看到名词 hardship， 它表示艰难、艰困或是困难的意思。可以说 Matt suffered many hardships after losing his job. Matt 失业后吃了很多苦。也可以说My cousin's life has been filled with many hardships. 我表弟的生活困难重重。最后看到 combination 这个名词，指结合、综合或是联合，也可以是混合的意思。 举例来说 This dessert is a combination of chocolate and strawberry pudding. 这种甜点是巧克力和草莓布丁的结合。或者 Purple is a combination of red and blue. 紫色是红色和蓝色的混合。
Okay, here's what Ray has to say. He's 27 years old and he is a hotel employee. He says, I think it'd be awesome if we could try more creative ways to help strays, like opening cat cafes or even dog-friendly spots. Okay, this is a rather unusual opinion here, but he thinks it's awesome. If something's awesome, it's really great, it's really wonderful. You can describe your favorite athlete like Shohei Ohtani. Oh, he's awesome. He's really great. I want to see him play in a baseball game. And he thinks this would be really great if they could have something like cat cafes. They already have those, but maybe we could have more with some of those stray cats. So we need to clean them up, of course. And places where we have dog-friendly spots, because sometimes people, they like to hang around dogs. Dogs are usually friendly. They're not always friendly. Sometimes they're kind of mean and they bite people, but for the most part, dogs love attention, and if people get to pet those dogs, they probably feel better about themselves.
That's true. I mean, I think this is another issue that comes down to the responsibility of the owner. If we had more places you could bring your dogs, you'd have to have owners who understand that bringing their dog on a train or having it stay in a hotel or eat with them in a restaurant, that also brings some requirements and certain expectations from the owner that they will keep their animal under control and quiet and safe and that kind of thing. But yeah, some dog-friendly spots. I know my sister has a dog, and finding a hotel in America that would let them stay in the room with the dog, that was a real challenge. So this is something that definitely is an issue for people with pets. They can't leave them at home on the weekend when they travel and whatnot. For these pet cafes, Ray goes on to say people could come, hang out with the animals, and maybe feel inspired to adopt one. Absolutely, that's what they do at these cat cafes or pet cafes, because they have other types of animals. They hang out. When you hang out, you're just kind of casually spending time with someone purely for enjoyment. It's your free time. You're going to get together with your friends. What are you going to do? I don't know, not much. We're just going to enjoy being together and talking about the things and the interests that we all have in common. We're hanging out. We're just spending time socially with nice people. Plus, he says these places could help spread the word about pet care and responsible ownership. Yeah, having kind of a pet cafe team up with an animal shelter, that might kind of work, right? Because you could have the animal shelter outside the city, send the friendliest animals to the pet cafe, and who knows, maybe in that environment, more animals might find happy forever homes. Wouldn't that be nice? All right, finally, we're wrapping it up with an expert on the topic. We have Lucy. She's 29. We know she's an expert. She is a veterinarian. That doesn't mean she fought in a war. That would be a veteran. She is a veterinarian, meaning she is an animal doctor. It's a long word, isn't it? That's why we often shorten it to vet. Lucy is a vet, an animal doctor.
And she says, I see the hardships strays face every day, and it's heartbreaking. So yes, indeed, you might think that these cats and dogs are living the life of Riley out there. They're free. They can go wherever they want, but it's actually a tough life. They're in trouble. They're vulnerable to attack and diseases. They get cold during the winter, etc., etc. They have to find food to eat. They have to depend on people to feed them. So yes, she sees the hardships that they face. A hardship is something that is difficult in life. Homeless people have lots of hardships as well. They have difficult things in their lives, and it's heartbreaking. When you see it, it makes you feel really sad.
There you go. We talked about dogs with no hair and skin diseases, broken legs, limping around. A lot of those dogs, of course, will have ticks and fleas and worms and all sorts of things. Not a happy, healthy life for an animal on the street. Lucy says, I think a combination of adoption programs, stricter pet laws, and public awareness campaigns is what's needed. So there you go. That's quite interesting. She's kind of taking different ideas from several of the people we've heard from over the last 2 days and doing a combination of many of those policies. A combination is just when you combine things. You take things that are separate, that exist on their own, and you bring them together in some kind of new form that maybe is better than individual items. As a combination, you put them together and they're better, they're stronger, they work more effectively, or something like that. So not all one thing. We're going to do a little bit of many different things. She gives the examples of adoption programs, stricter pet laws, and public awareness campaigns. A campaign is an organized effort to kind of reach a goal. If a company has a new product, they will have an advertising campaign. So they'll put together TV ads, print ads, internet ads, big signs for the store, exciting things like that to get people to know about and be interested in their new product. Of course, every 4 years in Taiwan, we have election campaigns when politicians and their volunteers and supporters will go out, make signs, drive up and down the street chanting things, trying to get attention, trying to get votes, trying to reach the goal of being elected. So this public awareness campaign will just try to get more people to know about the risks and the hazards and the problems of stray animals. There's no one solution, so a mix of approaches is necessary. And yes, often with complicated public issues like this, a mix, a combination, and solid work from many different parts of society is the best way to achieve success.
It seems Lucy has the best opinion here because she's an expert about this. She's a veterinarian, so I think that she's being the most reasonable. Okay, that brings us to the end of our discussion for today. Here comes Hanny, our beloved Chinese teacher.
各位同学大家好，我是 Hanny。 我们来看今天的文法重点。在课文第二部分的 James 提到，如果法律要求饲主妥善登记并照顾他们的宠物，我们就可以从一开始就防止宠物变成流浪动物。那文中用到 care for 来表达照顾，我们来整理它的不同意思。第一个呢，就是课文用法，它可以表达照顾、照料或者是供给所需。例如Who's caring for your children while you are at work? 你工作的时候是谁在帮你照顾小孩的呢？那第二点 care for somebody 可以表达说很喜爱某人的意思。例如 I can tell he cares for you. 我看得出来他很喜欢你。那第三个我们可以用 care for something 去表达喜欢、想要某事物，那这是稍微比较正式的用法。care for 当喜欢来解释时，意思相当于 like 或者是 enjoy， 常常用在否定陈述里。例如 He doesn't care for sweets， 就是他不喜欢甜食。那 care for 当想要来解释时，意思就相当于 want，常常会用 Would you care for something 来询问对方想不想要某事物。例如 Would you care for some tea? 您要来点茶吗？接着看到玉他提到，人们需要理解遗弃动物是很残忍的，而为宠物进行绝育在控制数量上能起很大的作用。文中用到 make a big difference 来表达起很大的作用。Make a difference 就是表达有重要影响，产生改变，常常用来指好的、正向的改变或影响。那可以加上 big、a lot of、much、little、small、no 等等来形容影响的程度。举例来说 The rain made very little difference to us. 下雨对我们几乎没有什么影响。在课文第三部分的 Lucy 她提到 I see the hardships strays face every day. 我每天都能看到流浪动物面临的困境。句子里面的 face 是当动词，是表达面临或面对，像面临挑战啊、面临困难等等。那我们这边补充一下它的用法。我们要表达某人面对困难的事情时，可以用主动用法 somebody faces something 来强调某人迎接、面对并处理某事，这带有主动正面迎击的语义。那或者是如果是用被动用法 somebody be faced with something， 这则是强调在无奈、不情愿或被动的情况下面临或遭遇了某一个困境。好，那我们造两个例句。The team is faced with a new challenge. 那个团队遭遇到一个新的挑战。They aren't ready to face the challenge. 他们还没准备好要面临挑战。好，以上是今天重点整理，我们回顾今天单字吧。
Ecology. Protecting forests is key for maintaining the planet's ecology. Ecosystem. Climate change is threatening ecosystems all over the world. Abandon. Molly could never understand why someone would abandon a pet. Register. You must register your car at the motor vehicle office. Hardship. Randall experienced a lot of hardships after he lost his job. Combination. The combination of exercise and a healthy diet can improve your health. Campaign. We're organizing a campaign to save the historic theater on Main Street.
Discussion Starter starts now!
Here's our discussion starter for today. The question is, what do you think would be the most effective way to reduce the stray animal population and why?
In my opinion, the best way to address this problem would be stricter laws on pet stores, since many of those pet stores are run simply for profit and not for the benefit of the animals. And of course, there are many wonderful animals in pet shelters. You don't need to go and spend all that money at a business, at a pet shop like that.
Well, we can take some of those old coal mining towns or those abandoned villages in various parts of Taiwan and make them cat villages or dog villages. Of course, we already have a cat village in Hotong outside of Ruifang and Xinbeishi, but maybe we could set up other communities like that so people can come and hang out with the dogs and hang out with the cats, and those animals can have a second chance at life. Well, that brings us to the end of another edition of our program, and please make sure you join us again next time. From all of us here, I am Roger.
I am Mike.
See you next time.